Let's see if I can turn the camera around. It's not. Oh, there it is. Come on. There it is. Okay, here we go. Here we go. It should be okay. Is it okay? See if you can find it. My rooster's crowing and the wind is kicking up. And is there anybody here? I can't tell. But there's a good picture of us.
I don't know. I believe you.
All right, let's see if I can find this now. My face. Oh no. Looking as big as a house. All right, there's nobody here. Yeah, I know.
That takes so much of the pressure off.
So they have to find me now. All right, so we're here. We might have to speak up to the camera. Hopefully people will come. There's nobody here now. You know, we had. Oh, here's the people. Okay. Hello, Jim and Adam. Everybody. Does it look right to you guys? It looks right to us. Sorry about the previous problem. Let me just adjust the picture. We want to get more of Mike and less of Maria here.
The least important one.
No, I'm the least important. They see me all the time. Okay.
Only the least important.
It's, I can be a little closer. Okay, wait. We're just adjusting the camera. Well, that's actually pretty good. A little bit here.
This isn't behind the scenes video?
No, this is a.
This is a how-to.
This is they're learning like all my. They're all deciding that they never want to do this. Okay. So, first of all, everyone who's here, welcome. I am here with 3 other helicopter pilots, and we will be talking about flying helicopters. But first, I'd like them to introduce themselves. And I don't like the cameras too cut off. All right, hold on. All right, here we go. That should be better. Okay, so we'll start here with Logan.
Yeah, I'm Logan, and that's about as far as I got with my notes. But I've been flying for 13 years. Helicopters, airplanes, lots of paragliders, and this is my 2nd season up here drying cherries with Maria. It's a good time, really fun flying. So I look forward to hopefully some more rain, maybe this afternoon.
It's supposed to rain. Bekah, you want to talk?
I'm Bekah. I've been flying for about 4 years. Currently a flight instructor, and this is my 1st year drying cherries, and hoping that it will rain so I get some actual experience doing that.
Yeah.
I'm Mike. I am not drying cherries. I am here supporting my lovely lady here, so I hope it does not rain. I'm also a pilot. I've been flying for 14 years, and really awesome to see what's going on out here. I'm kind of envious. I wish I could be up here doing it with you guys, but I'll be a groupie happily.
There you go.
Yeah.
So the situation for the weather today is first of all, we're all doing cherry drying. If you don't know what that is, you need to find the videos I did about cherry drying on this channel. There are a whole bunch of them, and there'll be more because that's what I'm doing this summer. But you know, just to learn more about it. But it is weather dependent, so we only fly after it rains or sometimes during it raining. And the forecast right now is calling for, I think, 20% during the day and then 50% heavy rain tonight. So we'll probably be flying later today and then crack of dawn tomorrow. Crack of dawn here is pretty early in Washington State. It's probably will be in the air by about 4:30 in the morning tomorrow. So that's something to look forward to. Okay, this is a live stream, and what I'm going to do is take your questions. If you're going to take the good questions. So if you have a question, please type it in. If you can't type it in, you should be able to because I have it set for public chat. So, and I have a couple of chat messages from you folks. And I'll be monitoring it on the iPad and then handing the questions over. And I just want to. No, I think that the pictures are right. You guys don't need to see me. You just see my hands.
Oh, come on.
Okay, so okay, Adam says that it's so odd that he was just watching a video about Wenatchee and poof, your live pops up 5 minutes later. So, you know, it's the Google. You know, the Google knows what you're thinking. They're thinking Wenatchee. Oh, let's put this in here. Yes, I am the main speaker, Squidgy Sailor, and I am out of the picture. Maybe that's by design. Okay, so you don't need to say hi. Marka is here, and CJ likes the beautiful view of the valley, which you probably can't see. Let's see if I can see it in the picture. is the helicopters are back there. Actually, you can see my helicopter next to Logan. Let's see if I get my finger to point exactly at it.
Let me know that I'm holding it.
Yeah, a little bit closer to you, a little closer. It's right over at Logan's shoulder. That little dark colored dot there. That is my helicopter, and the other two are down there as well.
It's kind of nice that they're stationed right here. Within 5 minutes,
Right.
we're at the helicopters and ready to go.
Logan is currently literally camped out in my camper, currently in my garage, but we're going to move it out of there. And Bekah is staying at a cabin at a neighbor's place. So we're all up here together. And the helicopters, although they are within a view of us, it's still about a 15-minute drive to get down to them. But still, it's closer than having to go to the airport, which is about a 45-minute drive. And Adam wants to know what everyone is flying, and actually we're all flying, the three of us doing cherry drawing are flying R-44s, so there's nothing too special about that, but maybe Mike can tell us what he flies.
I've flown R-44s a lot, love those things. Now I fly Bell 206s and Airbus BO-105 mostly, so.
Pretty cool.
But I always miss the old R-44. I take my instrument proficiency check with Bekah every year in an R-44, and it's wonderful to get back in that thing. I love those things.
That's pretty good.
They're great for cherries.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And have either of you flown something other than Robinsons?
Just the 206.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Just the 206.
Jump in every once in a while. Ferry flight, yeah.
Yeah, I've flown a lot of other ones. I mean,
Little bit
good
here and
amount of time. Yeah, 206, A-Star, a couple different things.
Yeah, that's right. Last year you made friends with a bunch of pilots here.
Yeah, I flew a 500 last year.
Yeah.
That's a nice aircraft.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, and let's see what else. That question was from Adam. Hold on, I can put my glasses on. Okay, and John is from Northern Ireland. John is the one who tried to give us advice before, and that advice usually works, but it didn't. I don't know why.
Wasn't helpful.
Matthew is currently active duty in the military and getting out in 18 months. Are there any good flight school options that accept VA as a way to pay for the school? Does Jerry Trimble do VA stuff?
So unfortunately, we don't do VA stuff. We do offer a military discount, but throw a pitch in there for VA students.
Yeah, I was former military. Thanks for your service, by the way. Getting out of the military and going into aviation, I think it's a really good mix because the civilian aviation world has a lot of the basics that the military has as far as like risk mitigation, planning, and stuff like that. Unfortunately, I think the VA and the flight training world, there's just so much back and forth, and schools are getting approved and losing their approval pretty consistently. And when I left the military, I did some more training at a VA approved school, and the best thing I can say is just get in the car and go from school to school to school and see how they are, and that's kind of how I selected mine. Just bouncing between them all and getting that feel of what it's like, and just making phone calls. You can tell within a couple of minutes, I think, of calling, whether it's a school or an operator, if they're going to be if they know what they're doing, and then just hop on the road, take a road trip out. It's probably the best 2-week road trip I've ever had.
Yeah,
and it worked out well for me. So
I think also when you're out there at the flight schools, see if you could talk to some of the other students,
yeah.
just to see what they think of the school in general, not just the VA students, but it's your flight school I think is pretty important, and most flight schools I think are pretty decent, but there's a couple out there that are maybe not as good as others.
Yeah.
So it's good to know.
Use your judgment.
Yeah. And don't be, the common thing these days is to get you to pay up front to buy into a program. I do not think that's a good idea, because you don't want to lock in your money at a flight school and then discover that the flight school is really not the best option for you, or maybe something comes up in your life and you have to take a break. You don't want to tie up all your money. I learned pay as you go. I was making good money at the time, so it wasn't much of a burden. But at the same time, just the idea of going into deep debt for flight school is pretty scary, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I know I went to 2 separate schools. I think you went to 2 separate schools. It's nice to be able to, if it's not working out or if life happens, to be able to bounce around. I think it's definitely treated you better because you've got 2 very diversified experiences of training and giving you more culture, I guess you could say. So.
Yeah, it gets you out of the little flight school bubble, because unfortunately it kind of seems that way, at least in a lot of the bigger schools. You only know whatever they know, and there's a ton of different areas of aviation, especially with helicopters. Like, I mean, come to think of it, even cherry drying, not everybody knows that that's even an option. It's not something that you think of right out of the gate. And as a student, if you don't have anybody around you that does stuff like this or is a little bit more diversified, then you're not going to know about it.
Okay. I think that's covering flight schools pretty well.
Are we done with that?
Yeah, no, I just, you know, whatever.
Marie, you should start a flight school. You're
No, I
obviously
don't want to do
getting-
flight school. You know, it's funny because I have friends that have had a flight school and they sold it and are very glad that they sold it. They're actually celebrating that they sold it.
Yeah.
I would never start a flight school. I think that's really
Hard work.
self-abuse. Yeah.
It is.
Let's see. CJ hopes the harvest is due with the lack of rain. We hope that they get some rain, and that the harvest is safe. Ken wants to know how many feet we fly above the cherry trees. I generally fly about 5 to 10 feet over them, unless they're rainiers, we fly higher for them because they bruise easier.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you haven't done it yet, but how about same thing?
Yeah, I 3 to kind of normal hover height, but above the trees as opposed to the ground.
Right.
And then it just depends. There's so many other factors. The trees are not all the same height, so you're going up and down constantly. And as you make your turn, this job's mostly about flying the tail, I think. So just being really aware. Helicopters in general are flying the tail, so it's 40 feet behind us, making sure we're fit for the turns and everything. That's the altitude we need.
And that really comes into play when you're going downhill on an orchard, when the rows are set up and downhill and you're going downhill. If you're trying to stay close to the trees, you're going downhill, your tail row is going to get into the trees behind you. And a lot of times you turn sideways to avoid that happening.
Yeah, anytime I run into a downhill, as opposed to coming straight down it, just go sideways, and now your tail's going to be good.
And you can see that in some of the videos that I do. I'll be flying along straight, and all of a sudden I'll be flying along sideways and straight again.
And it's fun.
Yeah, it is. And I actually do enjoy that.
Yeah, it's a good
I don't
time.
mind hills and orchards. What I don't like is, we were talking about this earlier, obstacles. There's a good question here that I'm going to save for later from Squidgy Sailor, but we're going to save that one for later. We'll talk more about general stuff right now. Greg wants to know if there's any truth. Well, first of all, I want to thank Greg for being a channel member. Thank you, Greg, for being a channel member. And he wants to know if there's any truth to the rumor that the 4 of us are kicking off the world's first extreme sport helicopter jousting league.
Oh.
And I don't know where you heard that, but
It's true.
Definitely.
I don't know how you heard that either. I thought we were keeping that on the down low.
yeah, I know. Things
It's
get
not
out.
approved yet.
Things get out. And Adam says that you can't go wrong with a 44, and I agree on that. I think
Those
they're
are
pretty
great.
good. So Nick says he's watching 2 miles away from the Helicopter Museum, Weston-super-Mare, England. I hope I spelled that right. Enjoy the content and scenery. Thank you very much, Nick. And then Matt says just thanking us. Lots of thanks in here. They want to know if Bekah and Rotor
Yeah, this is Nick
are
Van.
wearing the same sunglasses.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, they are.
his sunglasses.
Yeah. Okay, they are. I can't put mine on because I have to be able to read. I'm like at that age, and I don't have prescription sunglasses, so I'm stuck with this. Somebody from St. Louis loves the videos. Thank you. It's I can't even say the name. Let's see. All right. Well, let's see. Let me go back. The questions kind of ran out. Let me go back up to the question from Squidgy Sailor. He wants to know if the most peaceful flight, your most peaceful flight, reminds you of a story you can share. Does anybody have a story they want to share about a peaceful flight? Most people want to know what our crazy flights are.
Yeah, peaceful
I
flight.
was
Yeah.
trying to remember the
That's
last
nice.
time I felt
And you had a
peaceful in a
peaceful flight?
helicopter.
Most I'd say, yeah. Yeah.
I dried cherries yesterday morning, 50-acre orchard, and it was flat, and everything was really nice. And maybe there'll be video about it. Who knows? I don't look at the cameras. But the point is that 50 acres took me about almost an hour and a half, and that gets pretty peaceful, especially when the camera kicks out and all the narrating I'm doing goes up to the ether. But that was kind of nice. And I've also done one of the flights I always think about, and again, there's a video about this too. As I did a flight back in 2012 with my old helicopter going from Wenatchee to Hillsboro, Oregon, and it was my last dog's first flight. It was the first time she was ever in a helicopter, and it was an hour and a half flight. and she was asleep before I even left the ground. She fell asleep during warm up. First time ever in a helicopter. She was such a great dog. That was Penny. And what was neat about that flight is the weather was perfect. I was able to do a direct flight to Hillsborough. So straight line. I'm flying over just gorgeous Cascade Mountain views, and the clouds are on the down low, really low. Would not have been good if I had an engine failure because you couldn't see the ground. But I was way above them, and it was just really peaceful and pretty. And there's a video with clips from that one and music. And I know a lot of folks don't like music, but that's what I'm thinking of. Can you think of anything?
Yeah, I mean, in the last 13 years, I've had a number that are pretty special flights, and it's hard to pinpoint one. I do a lot of tours, and so it's always full of people. Every flight's different stories, different things, and that's enjoyable. But there's something really peaceful about being in the helicopter all alone, going up and down the river here, and especially early morning when the air is still nice and smooth. Wow, I mean, there's a reason I fly helicopters.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Any ideas or any?
As far as recently peaceful flights, I'm a flight instructor, so a lot of my flights are very high stress, and I'm worried about the student and what they're gonna do, and but I also do fly tours every once in a while, and the one I think of is I flew a little kid, 7-year-old boy, for his birthday, and that was probably one of the most peaceful and also fun flights, because it's like that childhood excitement of this is the most amazing thing in the world for him right now, and we were just flying 44 over the valley,
pretty cool.
It's pretty awesome, and then it kind of reminds me to not take for granted what I'm doing, because that's definitely something that happens a lot. This turns into a job, and it's what we do for work, but every once in a while you get those little things that remind you like you're living somebody's dream.
For sure.
Yeah, I think mine was a couple of years ago. I was doing a video flight up in the Cascade Mountains, and the crew that was with us was from France, I think. So there wasn't really that great of a communication. They weren't super experienced at flying in helicopters, and if everybody that's been around helicopters know that when the rotors turn, everybody's brain kind of turns to mush, and they get really like antsy almost. It's like there's a sense of urgency going on. So it was super stressful getting ready for this flight. It was a sunset flight up in the mountains for some video they were trying to get. And on the way out, they're trying to figure out their equipment. They're trying to figure out angles. It was, it was just so stressful. And we got up, I think we were next to Mount Jefferson, right as the sun was coming down, and got into position for the first shot that they were looking for. And, when you've got an object between an object and you can go up and down, you can kind of manipulate the geometry. So you can make a sunset happen multiple times in a helicopter. And we made that first one happen, and everything just got quiet. They were just in awe. And then I went back up, and the sun came up, and then I went back down, and the sun went down, and they didn't talk anymore. They were completely quiet. I listened to music when I was flying. A nice song was on. It was a very peaceful song. And we probably did 10 or 15 sunsets, and they got everything they were looking for. And a nice, relaxing flight back where they were almost like awestruck of how beautiful it was. It was a gorgeous day, smooth up in the mountains and stuff. And we polished it all off with a nice smooth set down, which is always nice. And I slept like a baby that night.
Yeah. I think that what we can all agree, we've all been flying different amounts of time and different amounts of experience, different amounts of different areas. But the more you fly, the more, like as I'm sitting here thinking and listening to you guys, I'm thinking of more flights that are like the magic flights. And the more you fly, the more magic, the more crazy, the more everything. So it's it never ends. It's just a great thing. Let's see. Okay, let's see, let me just go see if we get some more story questions. Okay, well let's go, we have a technical question here, pretty easy question. Wants to know what the string on the nose of the helicopter is when you're flying. Then he sees it flowing in the wind. All right, who wants to take that question?
I mean, flight instructors should probably take that.
No, flight instructor here.
That's our $1 million trim string.
Yeah,
and, we spend a ton of money on that thing. Got to keep it really well maintained, dry as possible.
Oh man,
it is on the outside of the helicopter, as you've seen. So that's letting us know if we're flying the helicopter in trim. So if we need to put in any more pedal in either direction to keep us level. And a lot of times, like, students will not realize that they're flying a helicopter out of trim. I didn't realize it as a student either, but my instructor always complained, like, either you feel like you're being dumped out of the helicopter or you're kind of sitting above the person that's next to you and you're not flying level. After enough time, you realize, oh yeah, I do want to fly this thing level. It does make a difference, but
Yeah.
In the cherry world, another thing that's important about those strings is when the string's pointing up, it means that we're flying forward. And the strings it's the fastest way to recognize when the airflow stops coming as much forward as it does is going down. So recognizing when you're in that hover and using those strings and flying the strings, there's a really good article about flying the strings.
I
Yeah.
should check that out.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
I should know this stuff.
Those strings
I
are
should know this. I've
yeah.
been doing this for 14 years. I should know this stuff. I never thought about the string. I ignore the strings.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, I got new
It's
strings.
one of the fastest pieces of equipment and
Yeah.
instrument that we have. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
no, immediate results. It's basically it's not really inexpensive. She's
I
joking.
was
She's
joking.
saying it's literally if you apply yarn.
Yep.
You could buy it in Joanne Fabrics. You know, it's like not a big deal. And actually, mine while I had the helicopter was gone in LA, they were replaced, and I have orange trim strings now.
Wow.
So that's a big
Nice.
exciting
That's
thing.
nice.
So yeah, we're just stepping up in the world. Okay. My dream. What is your dream helicopter pilot job? And which aircraft would you want to fly doing it? Matthew wants to know. Anybody want to take that? I can tell you mine.
Yeah, go
Yeah,
for
go.
it.
Storm,
Let's
you
hear it.
guys.
Let's hear it.
I would love to be. My dream. Well, first of all, I love chasing things. I love chasing things with a helicopter. I'm hoping the wind is not kicking up too badly right now. If it is, somebody let me know. As long as you can hear us, we're okay. But my dream job is to chase anything, but I would love to be a movie pilot. Not the pilot who's in the movie, but the pilot who's got the cameras on board with the photographers that are making the movie, chasing high-speed vehicles and whatnot. And the kind of helicopter, I'm not picky. Anything that I can slip into, like I could slip into my R-44 where you think it and it happens. And I think any helicopter would be like that if you have enough time in it. So, if I had to do it in a 44, I could, because, that's what fits me best. I also love herding horses. Love herding horses. But that is really high expensive insurance. So that ain't gonna happen again. So anybody come up with a...
Yeah, I really like the idea of utility jobs. Using the helicopter for work. They really are work machines, and there's something special about getting something done. So I really like that, and I love the A-Star. I haven't flown a ton of helicopters, but the A-Star sticks out to me as an amazing machine. It works really well in all conditions.
I'm not super picky, so I'd be happy pretty much flying anything
Yeah,
at
cool.
this point. Originally starting out, my dream was to fly the Sky Crane. I
Oh,
still,
man.
would love that opportunity, but yeah, I really like Bell helicopters, so it's been awesome flying the 206. I'd love to fly 407 like that. I kind of have lately been leaning more towards like the fancy helicopters, so maybe some rich billionaire wants to pay me to fly them around someday in their fancy 407 or something. But,
Shameless plug. You want to throw your email in.
What about you?
I've got my dream job, honestly, flying light utility. I absolutely love it. But there's two other caveats to that. One, I can't wait till I retire and own my own helicopter. I'm very jealous of you that you have a hangar on your house. And you get to...
It's not in there right now, I swear.
Yeah, but being able to just, when you want to enjoy flying, you can just go hop in your helicopter and go. You were talking about that last night. And
Oh, yeah.
I think that's magical, and I look forward to that. But in the end, I found that more important than what helicopter I'm flying or what I'm doing, it's the people that I work with, and I absolutely adore the people I work with. They are part of our family, and we are part of their family, and I think that that's the most important thing. We have customers that we absolutely love that love us, and I could care less, honestly, if I'm flying the oldest helicopter in the world or something super fancy. Lots of power, not a lot of power. I think it's about the people that I work with that really makes it special. So.
Okay. All good answers, I think. Squidgy Sailor's asking again, another question. How does the helicopter mindset transfer help you in private lives? That's a good question.
How much time do we have?
It depends. When they all go away, that's when we're done.
Yeah.
Well, instrument-rated pilots can text and drive. That's just
Should
known.
be allowed.
It's actually good training.
Yeah.
Like, you should text and drive probably in order to train. Yeah.
No, man.
Or not. You know. It's okay.
I don't think, I can't think of anything.
It's so much part of my identity, I suppose, as being a helicopter pilot. And so somebody asked me what I do, I'm really proud to say I'm a helicopter pilot. And I think that there's a certain amount of confidence that goes along with that. And I don't know who I'd be without it. So how has it affected my life? I mean, it is my life. I love it.
I think it successful pilots in general, they're doing stuff like this. I'm not at work, definitely not at work. You guys are on standby, and here we are talking about helicopters. I know that, every once in a while I'm studying a book. Every once in a while I'm watching a YouTube video about something. I'm reading about stuff. I'm staying in the game, and it makes you really passionate about what you're doing. And it makes you strive to be as good as you can at what you're doing when it comes to work. And I think that transfers over into a lot of aspects of life. I'm not saying that we do the dishes all the time and get the laundry done ahead of schedule, but when we're interested in something and we're pursuing it, I think we're really dedicated to it. We try and do it as best as we possibly can, because that's the only way you can survive as a pilot, and be successful, is to try and be the best you can.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You want to add anything?
I agree with all those
Yeah,
statements.
no, it's all good. All good stuff.
I mean, I think it does increase your situational awareness in
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot of areas.
Reaction
like-
time, too.
Yeah, definitely.
Keeps you, I think it just makes you better able to focus on what's going on around you. Or maybe I'm just like maybe that ability, maybe that part of me is what makes me a better pilot. Who knows? We got some thanks here from John. He appreciates us talking about all this. Sub-Zero wants to know, do you get used to flying that it's not as cool as the first time flying? And I say yes.
Yeah.
It's very easy to, it's like, I tell people and they don't believe me. When I get into my helicopter, it's like getting into a car. I get in the helicopter, I start it up, I fly away. Just like I get into my car, I start it up, I drive away. And so occasionally you'll get like something will remind you that it's cool. But in general, for me, the coolness kind of does go away. I don't know if any of you feel the same or.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I was actually just talking to my dad about it because I was mentioning that every few days I'll go run up the helicopter just to, keep it fresh. And this is a brand new engine, so we don't want it just sitting there idle. And I honestly didn't really want to go do that. I didn't want to go hang out with the helicopter. And he was like, why would you not want to do that? So I compared it to like a tractor. If I'm driving a tractor for my job all week long and then I get this, standby time or time, basically paid vacation, then I don't want to go get on the tractor. I don't want to go drive it around. It's not fun. I do that for a job.
I kind of disagree.
Really?
Yeah,
Good.
yeah.
No, this is good.
Yeah, I think it's
magic
super
for me,
special.
actually.
Yeah, I think it's
Really?
really special.
good.
And I pinch myself all the time.
Oh, really? That's so
Yeah.
cool. That's so cool.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think that's a conscious decision. You
Yeah,
know, like
you made that.
I was like, oh no, this is cool, and I just remind myself. Yeah.
I don't want to say like it's boring to me or there's nothing special about it. There's flights. You go for a flight. If I fly up Icicle Creek and I see a waterfall or there's magic in the flights. But I don't know. It just doesn't seem as cool. I guess after. Yeah.
It's definitely the best parts are definitely your first.
Yeah.
Learning and everything as far as the wow factor goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to beat. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sorry about the wind chimes. Fraser's the wind chimes apparently bothering me. Sorry, they're downstairs. I'm not going to go down. I paid a lot of money for those wind chimes. And I really like those
They're
wind
really
chimes.
fancy wind chimes. I was commenting on them on the way in.
You like the wind chimes?
They're awesome.
Anyway, sorry about the wind chimes. Why Matthew wants to know the same thing I want to know, Matthew. Why are Robinsons looked down upon by people in the helicopter world? What the hell's wrong with these people? They're good little helicopters, most bang for the buck. The only reason I can think of, and you guys might have your own thoughts, is that they're not turbines, and there are a lot of turbine snobs out there, and they just think that if it's not a turbine, it's not a helicopter. And I don't agree, but I own a Robinson, so what do you expect?
Yeah, it just depends on what you're doing with it, really. I mean, there's a lot of things that a Robinson can't do that maybe other helicopters can, especially just payload-wise. But they're pretty fast, and they work pretty well, and their tail rotor's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, you can whip it around if you need to.
Yeah.
For the right job, there's nothing better. Yeah.
It is, I think it's the best helicopter for cherry drawing because, again, you got the bang for the buck. You've got a lot of, it's moving a lot of air because it's got a pretty large rotor disc. And it's, it's not very expensive in this grand scheme of things to fly. So I just think it's a really good helicopter for that mission.
Yeah,
And for us too, probably.
There's probably some extra awareness that's necessary as far as so maybe if you're not as good of a pilot, you don't like our 44s, or maybe if you're scared, you don't like our 44s.
Yeah, it reminds me when I was in the Army in aviation, and they had when I was in they had OH-58s, which are little scout helicopters, and I was a Black Hawk guy, and without fail, every time an OH-58 would taxi by, someone would go out there and make believe that they were flying a remote control airplane. And they always made fun of them. And first of all, the OH-58 is basically like a short body 407, which is everybody loves 407s. They have the same rotor system, big giant engine. These helicopters were beloved by the ground troops. These guys did unbelievable work until the airframe was retired. I had the utmost of respect and awe for not only that helicopter but the crews that operated it. But it was still the same thing. Mine's bigger than yours. Mine's got more power than yours. Therefore, you're inferior. And to be honest, what they were able to do with that helicopter, I think it took a lot of skill and a lot of bravery that when you're flying around a Black Hawk with one person in it in the back, you've got power for days. And I think it kind of translates over. No matter what, people are always going to look down the road and say, that's not as good. People that fly mediums look down on the light helicopter industry in general. And heavies look down on guys in Hueys and say, you're nothing, take your toy home. And I think it's all just kind of fun banter and everything. But yeah, the Robinson products, like Frank made an excellent helicopter, and I love those things, and they're just wonderful. So.
Let's see now. Friday Frank wants to know if we all own our own helicopters and what our first helicopter was. And okay, so I am the only idiot who owns a helicopter. And my first helicopter was an R-22. And but these folks don't. This poor fool wants to, and this I think this guy does too. I don't know. I'm making fun, but it is wonderful to own any kind of aircraft and be able to just go out to where it's parked and hop in and go for a flight, whether it's an airplane or a helicopter or whatever. It is wonderful. I'm making fun. What I don't like about owning a helicopter is the expense involved. And as it gets older and needs more maintenance or needs to go for an overhaul, right now we're just the insurance industry. You guys don't feel that because you're not paying the insurance, but because of all the high-profile issues we've had in the past maybe 5 years, and you guys know who I'm talking about, and a couple of them I'm not going to mention by name, but that has taken a serious toll on the aviation insurance industry. And because of that, the rates for all of us have gone up. So my rates, just for an example, on a ship that's getting older, went from just under $15,000 a year to $19,000 a year in 1 year. And my ship isn't getting any younger. It's getting older and it's worth less, and the insurance is going up. And it's nothing I did. This isn't related to my past. This is related to those crashes. So, when the more you pay for insurance, that's a fixed cost, and you start adding up all these fixed costs, and you realize that you have to fly a lot of hours to spread those costs out. And then if you've got an aging ship that you can't fly a lot of hours, it turns out being really expensive to fly. So, I start wondering, am I working for myself or am I working for my mechanic and my insurance agent? And, so anyway, I'm on if you were to draw like the profile of the lifeline of a helicopter pilot and what they want and dream, I'm on the downhill slide now. I'm ready to ease myself right out of it. These guys are on their way up. She's just starting, and these two guys are like, you know, getting kind of climbing near the top, and I'm like, no, I'm coming down. I'm like, yeah, I'm done with this. And Marco likes our wind chimes. Yes.
Hey.
Let's see now. What else do we have? Yes. I'm sorry about the sound. We have. I only have one microphone. Because I'm not a professional video editor and I don't have a studio. We are limited. So I'm sorry if this sound is not perfect, but that's the way it goes. You know, when this channel starts bringing in $10,000 a month, I'll definitely will consider an upgrade.
So hit that like button and subscribe.
Tell your friends. Let's see. David says, really good point. There's a lot more people in helicopters today because of Robinson, and I think that's pretty good. And Frank wants to know, Friday Frank wants to know, what kind of work can you get in an R-22? Other than flight instructing would be, I think, the number one.
Flight instructing is the main thing, and then I think, rice pollination?
Oh, yeah.
Down in,
Yeah.
like, Texas area, I've met a lot of pilots. I went to the Robinson safety course a couple of years ago, and that's where I heard a little bit more about, like, what you can do with 22s, and that would be
You can
one of
move
the main
cattle,
things.
too.
Yeah,
You
cattle
could,
mustering is a
yeah.
good thing.
Photo flights.
Yeah,
That's
with
true.
skinnies
Yeah.
on board. Unless you're skinny, you can take anybody. But you have to have. When I had a 22, we, you know, I'm not a small person, although I was smaller then. And my ex wasn't a small person either, and we could never fill it up with fuel. Whenever we always had like 2 hours of fuel on board. It was never more than that. So, and that comes into play in photo flights, especially when the photographer wants to do something aggressive in a high density altitude situation. It's really easy to get into trouble with that. So it's doable, but again, you want to be as light as possible.
They're amazing solo aircraft. They're
That's-
so
yeah.
much fun.
It's
They're so great.
a friend used to say it's the best one-person helicopter you can buy.
I think that's
Yeah.
true.
And it's
Yeah.
true. It's true. I flew. Gosh, I had when I had mine, I put about 1,000 hours on it in the 4 years that I owned it, and I did a ton of that solo cross country, taking it from Arizona up to Eagle, Colorado, taking it up to Placerville, California. I just used to take that thing everywhere by myself because, you know, everyone else, I gotta work or whatever it was. So
Well, and they teach you a lot because you can get close to max gross weight so quickly that is gonna just continue throughout your entire career. So
And
I
they're-
think they're great.
they're so squirrely that they say that if you can fly an R-22, you can fly anything, and I honestly believe that's true. Because nothing is going to be, I don't think anything's going to be as squirrely as a R-22. You know.
I tell my students that all the time when they're getting stressed out about not being able to hover, or, you know, the energy management and having no power in this thing. I'm like, you know, if you can figure this out, you're going to be fine doing anything else.
So, Squeegee Sailor wants to know, lots of questions. Come on, everyone else can ask questions too. There's 52 of you in this room. Or,
We're all
I'm one
just
of them. Okay.
silently
I'm one of
watching.
them. But there's 52 of you in this room. Others can ask questions. Squeegee Sailor wants to know, what's your favorite packed lunch for a long day of flying?
Oh,
Who thinks of that? I don't.
that's actually
I just like to land at restaurants.
that's a good idea.
There's a burger place down in Vantage I used to land at all the time. They don't have very good burgers though. Don't tell them I said this.
Oh no.
But there's, I mean, they have good shakes. I think they have sweet potato fries too. It's called Blustery's Burger, and it's right off the freeway there. And there's lots of places to land right on the property. And I used to land there quite often. And when I lived in Arizona, there were a bunch of restaurants out in the desert that we used to land at. We used to do this. I used to have a bunch of friends that owned helicopters, and we'd go out on these outings. And there's this one place out in the middle of the desert we flew into. There were like, I don't know, 6 or 7 helicopters and an airplane. And we landed out there, and when we got out to this place, there was nobody in there. And the airplane, by the way, landed on the road and taxied in to park with us. So it was pretty cool. And we got in there, there was nobody in there. And when we left after lunch, the place was packed. Every single person who was driving by stopped and went in for food. So that was a cool outing. Yeah, I don't any other food ideas.
I just have snacks, anything that's easy land free anyway.
Yeah.
But on like a day-to-day basis, yeah, land for food.
Yeah, I mean, helicopters, they don't fly that long, really.
No.
You know, you're always limited on fuel, so longest flights you're doing 3-4 hours, depending on the helicopter. You probably don't eat too much food during that time.
Say
And if
anything-
you do, snacks are great.
Yeah. Anything
Yeah.
you can remember, because there's nothing worse than landing
man.
for fuel at about 1 o'clock, and there's a lot of airport dinners have shut down, never
Yeah.
existed,
Mhm.
and you're like, man, all I brought was hard candy, and that's all I get. So anything you can remember is always good, or anything that's provided to you hot. That's a super treat.
food is good.
when you're
Pizza,
busy.
you eat pizza while you're flying.
Yep, I try. Yeah, put it by the heater, try and heat it up.
Oh,
some
really?
aluminum foil. Yeah, get it nice. Try and, as much as possible, have like the finer dining experience, because I'm tired of eating, a crappy sandwich that you
Yeah.
bought at a gas station or something. So if I can have a little filet mignon while I'm flying, I'm gonna do it. It makes me feel
One-handed,
good.
one-handed.
Yeah,
Dang,
exactly.
what a flight with you. Yeah.
Really? It would kill me with being able to smell it and not being able to eat
Yeah.
it because your hands are. That would kill me. Let's see. Marco wants to know if an R44 would be suitable for power line work. I mean,
Absolutely.
well, when you say power line work, there's different kinds of power line work. If you mean inspecting power lines, then yeah, for sure. I've actually done it. It's not bad shit, but all for that. If you mean helping them rig power lines where they're actually setting posts or running lines, then no, I can't even imagine doing that with a 44. I don't think it has the payload required. But they do use helicopters to run the wires. They run these spools under like hundreds and things like that. And also they use much larger helicopters to actually set poles. Where they'll pick up the pole, it'll be dangling under the helicopter, and they'll put it in place, and the guys on the ground will do whatever the heck they do, probably giant bolts.
Yeah.
And if you go back through my the video library for this channel, you will see some other power line work where they were using a helicopter to move workers and equipment from one power pole to the next. It was really cool. We're driving through the desert in California and stumbled on this. I got out and took some video from the ground. It was very, very cool. Just these guys hanging from lines under the helicopter. So that was pretty cool. Let's see. Frank is here. Thank you, Frank, for being a channel member. Yay, Frank.
Yay.
And Frank has, okay, he missed the beginning. Well, Frank, you're going to have to scroll back and watch it. But we will just, a brief reintroduction to the folks who are joining us late. We are 3 cherry drawing pilots and a friend of a cherry drawing pilot who also flies helicopters, and we all fly our 44s, and he flies a 206 and other stuff, I think.
Yes.
And but we are all pilots, and the only flight instructor right now. You're not instructing, are you?
Nope.
No.
Yeah.
Is just Bekah. You don't know.
I do sometimes, but that's,
Only when they
yeah.
force you. Let's see. Okay. Adam flies fixed wing. We're sorry. No.
Smart
I'm just
man.
kidding.
Smart.
You're a smart man, right?
Sorry.
Is settling with power, or whatever it's called, ever happen with any of you, or is it a muscle memory so it never happens? That's a pretty good question there. I have had settling with power on photo flights at very high altitude, so it was not an issue. I knew I was going to get into it. I was expecting it. I had a heavy load. We were pretty high up, high density altitude, but high off the ground. They wanted me to go into a hover, which I was able. And I warned them. These were people that flew with me all the time for these photo flights, and I warned them. I said I will do my best to bring it into a hover, but there's a good chance that we're going to start settling, and if that's the case, I got to go. And sure enough, basically that's what happened, because I was heavy and we were high. But the thing about settling with power is when you're high up, it's not an issue really, as long as you know how to recover from it. And they do test us on that. I mean, that's something you need to know how to do. It's just a matter of, there's actually 2 different ways to get out of it. I still do it the old-fashioned way, which is, cyclic forward and slightly lower reflective and move forward. But there's a new way, the Richard, I think it's called, method recovery, and that requires you to fly sideways. And it's basically doing the same thing, but it's doing it without really losing altitude, which makes so much more sense. But if you're high up, it doesn't really matter. But close to the ground, if you get into settling with power, it could cause you to crash. So, I don't know if anyone else wants to add to that.
I don't what to look out for, and then like Marina said, we actually get tested on this, so we have to know how are you going to get into it, the different ways that you could get into it. Typically, you're going to get into it near the ground, which is why the Bouchard recovery is nice because you don't lose as much altitude. If you're, coming in too hot on an approach or something, and you have a high descent rate, and you're in a power limited helicopter, which is basically Robinson's in general, unless it's us flying just by ourselves, then you might not be able to arrest that descent rate, and maybe going forward it's too late for that. So if you give yourself a bigger safety margin and you're not getting into that situation, then you shouldn't have to deal with recovering from it.
Yeah, we do a lot of production longline work, and to be honest, like I wouldn't say that we get into settling with power all the time, but we have a term that feels settling, and we're basically incipient vortex ring state, and it's very, very prevalent. Probably I'd say maybe on a good long day, probably 30, 40 times a day, and fortunately though, it's something that we recognize, that we know that's there, and like I said, when we're doing production work, which means we're going as quick as we can. When you have an external load, you're doing a lot of vertical descents for picks and stuff like that. And we identify that it's coming really quickly, and we know the few things that we can do to just nip it in the bud, I guess you could say. As well as when you have a huge power margin and you're able to recognize it before it's fully developed vortex ring state, i.e. you're coming in to pick a load, you can power out of it. And I think that's something that's not really taught because you can't guarantee it. But we engineer our flight profiles so that we know when we are unladen that we can power out of it, and we also are able to identify before it even happens and feel that vibration, sense what the helicopter is doing, and avoid getting into a fully developed state. And then the settling with power, as in power available or power required exceeds power available, that there's almost no excuse to get into it. If you plan appropriately and you know how to do power checks when you're going into land, if you need OG power or not need OG power, being able to fly with mountains, it's really common in the mountains with updrafts and downdrafts. If you're able to identify it beforehand and do what's the hardest thing as a pilot, say, I'm sorry, we can't land there, or we have to divert, we have to go somewhere lower, we have to burn some fuel off, then you can avoid that. But it's
and this is what I'm seeing from what you're talking about is it's experience stuff. This is stuff that you learn from, you can learn the theory in books, but it's not until you go out and you're actually flying in all these different conditions and getting a feel for it. But being also really aware of what's going on, feeling squishy, it's not just, you need to really feel what the aircraft is doing and pay attention to it. And that, I think that comes with experience. The more you fly, the easier that comes.
Yeah, take it from flight school, and how we got into it and practice getting out of it up at altitude. It was always a descent. You get a low airspeed, a vertical descent with power applied. And I remember the first time I got into settling with power with no descent rate due to an updraft, and it was probably a 500 foot a minute rate of updraft while I was at basically zero lateral or horizontal ground speed. And with a consistent power setting, the helicopter sat there, and then it just went and started falling. You felt the shakes. And it was all due to an updraft. And the people that I fly with had told me about it. I was like, you're just making stuff up. I never even thought about that. Yeah, that's pretty sure enough, high winds in the mountains, and that comes from experience. And luckily, I listened to them and was able to identify it pretty quickly. So
yeah, I think depending on your job, it's something that we all deal with. Definitely.
So Matthew R. says he read a lot about the helicopter industry is in need of pilots, but the pay and experience required is partially the reason for the shortage of pilots. Any comments on that?
Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm self-employed, so I don't deal with it, but these guys would know better than me. What do you want to say?
There are jobs, for sure. It's really expensive to become a helicopter pilot. So going through all those phases, you're not an applicant for a job until you've got a certain amount of hours. And so it costs that much to become employable. And then your first couple of jobs, probably you're not going to make that money back, right? It takes years to probably recoup what you spent on becoming a pilot. But, it's a passion industry. You've got to love it. And if you don't, and you're really concerned about it, it might not be worth it. Yeah. But to me, it was. And it still is.
Okay, let's see what else we got. Let's see. If you could visit any country with your helicopter, where would it be? Oh, this country's pretty good. There's a lot in this country. So,
There's
you
a
know,
lot of diversity over
there,
here.
seriously, when I flew in Arizona, you'd have the desert, you'd have desert canyons, you'd have mountains with, you know, trees without trees, you know, volcanic areas, river areas, sand dunes. I mean, and that's just in one state. So, and up here it's, you know, mountainous, but we've also got, you know, there's a lot here. I don't really think about flying in another country. I mean, there's so much this country has to offer, but
Yeah, there's a lot of countries out there. I think any of them sound pretty cool. They all offer something different.
Yeah.
I mean, flying around here in Nevada, I love flying around Nevada. It's probably my favorite state to fly with because there's not that many roads.
No.
And there's tons of mountains, and you can really explore and land and play like you can't other places. So.
And there's wild horses out there.
Tons of wild horses.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
It's the right time of year.
I think the thing that first comes to my mind is I understand the American regulations of flying. I fly through Canada pretty frequently. Man, every other country's got some form of other regulation, rule, policy. I don't really want to study that stuff.
Yeah, no.
Fiji'd be beautiful, but I don't even know where to start with. Who do you talk to? What kind of charts do they have? I don't know. So I'm pretty comfortable in the North American continent. So.
Anyway, I think taking a helicopter anywhere would be awesome. It's awesome.
It's I did a lot of cross country flying where like for pleasure, and it's nice when you can decide where you want to go. That's the difference between being an owner and working for somebody else. When you work for somebody else, they're paying all the bills, but they're also telling you what you can and can't do. When you're the owner, you're paying all the bills, but you can do whatever you want. And there's something really nice about that, to be able to get in the helicopter. I remember in my R-22 back a long time ago, before I worked for Papillon, I decided I wanted to go take a trip around the Grand Canyon airspace in my 22. And I stopped at like Marble Canyon, and then I stopped at, there's a place called Bar 10 Ranch, and it's where Papillon takes people out of the Grand Canyon that are on rafting trips and puts new people in. So they've got a little helibase there, and I wound up spending 2 nights there, and they let me park on one of Papillon's pads, which I thought was kind of cool. So my little R-22 sitting there next to a Long Ranger, and it was just so cool to be able to fly out to this ranch. Is literally 85 miles on gravel to get to this ranch from like St. George or something, and it's cool to be able to do something like that. Yeah, I'm, you know, whatever.
Whatever. That sounds amazing.
I know, well, no, it's cool. Yeah, really. That's where you need to be like in a partnership, and each person owns a helicopter for like 3 months.
Yeah.
And then in the 3 months, you just fly the heck out of it. I almost said something else. Fly the heck out of it. And then you turn, and then you've only got 1/4 of the bills.
Yep.
And that's, to me, that'll work. That'll work. Let's see. We don't really know too much about the Seattle or Vancouver areas of Washington. These folks you're from the LA area, right? And then you guys are from Oregon, so we really don't know any flight schools in Seattle or Vancouver, unfortunately. But you work for Jerry Trimble Helicopters in McMinnville. And that's where I get my maintenance done. Which is why I have all those videos of me flying to McMinnville. I'm sorry. That's where I go. Hey, Roy. Nice to see you. Let's see. Yep. Adam says the reason he's not a helicopter pilot yet is because he already paid an arm and a leg to fly the airplane. Okay.
Still smarter than us.
Yeah. The health restrictions of being a pilot, age, etc. Julian wants to know. So, it's not just the helicopter pilot, it's a regular pilot, that's what you wrote. You have to pass a medical to become a regular pilot. There's a whole sport pilot category, and I don't know anything about that. I don't know if you guys do.
Well, a little bit about basic med, but
Yeah, so
it's very limiting if you go that route as to what you can do.
Right.
You can't work.
That's if you're a sport pilot. But for a private pilot, there's 3 different levels of medical certificate. And they each are a little bit more strict, and they're each a little bit more frequent. So an airline pilot gets a medical exam twice a year, and he has to meet certain standards. And then for Class 2, which would be me, and I don't know, I assume all you guys are Class 2, that's commercial level, but not airline pilot, and that would be a little bit once a year. Are you you guys young enough to be every 2 years, or is that I'm thinking of the other thing? Okay, and then there's the private level, which is the least out of the regular certificated pilots, the least restrictive, and they do things like, your blood pressure and what medications you take, and there's certain medications you're not allowed to take.
Your
Vision, yeah,
your
hearing. Yeah.
First thing to go as a helicopter pilot.
Yeah. If you do become a pilot, definitely get noise canceling headsets.
Mm-hmm.
That was my first flight instructor recommended that to me, and that was really good advice. I still have terrible hearing problems there. Let's see. Stag, I can't say that whole name, but I'll just call you Stag. Stag wants to know, Zulu, what does that mean? It means the letter Z.
Yep.
Also, and when talking about time, Zulu time is the time in Greenwich Mean Time, and that's like a standard time, and then everyone's local time, like we're -7 here. So the Zulu is either the letter Z or Z if you're in the UK, or Zulu time. Okay, here's another good question from Matthew. Who are you the most thankful for in the industry that has helped you get to where you are as a pilot? Who impacted your careers positively the most? Any shout outs to any specific person?
Oh man, Ken Obi down at Orbic Helicopters in Camarillo, California. Amazing pilot, amazing instructor. I've never seen anybody do auto rotations like him. He's the best. Period. And Dean Graham. There's a couple of guys out there that really changed my life.
I'm sitting next to the person that changed my life the most.
No, not Logan.
Sorry, not Logan. As a flight instructor, and then I'm closest to having come through being a student. I have to say that instructors are a very important thing in your becoming a pilot, and I had some pretty crappy ones, I had some pretty great ones, and I had some really amazing ones, and the most amazing one I had to hold on to him, so, but yeah, I just have to say, you kind of find those people and gravitate towards people who are good at what they're doing, who have a passion for it, and then who want to help others succeed. And sometimes that's hard to find, especially in an instructor, because that's the way the U.S. is set up. That's typically your first job. So sometimes it feels like the blind leading the blind at this point. But when you have somebody who really cares about getting you through as a student, who wants to see you succeed, that helps a ton compared to an instructor who's just there to get their hours.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think obviously having the support at home is the most important thing now. It's a rough job sometimes. I know that I'm pretty much a zombie during the month of November. I travel a lot. We've had to buy houses based on where we work, not where we want to live. Everything's compromises. We don't get to plan stuff usually because we don't know where we're going to be. That's really important. But the person that definitely helped me the most was my mom. When I was a kid, I thought helicopters were cool, and she carted me around to airports, shoved me in front of pilots and mechanics and said, "You need to talk to this young man." And I was very fortunate that when I was 9 years old, I was an intern at an aerospace museum, and I got my first aviation-related job at 14. And my mom carted me to the airport 3 times a week to be a mechanic's assistant on helicopters, and without her, I definitely wouldn't have had like the fostering of, hey, you can pursue whatever you want and you can do whatever you want. And so I have to say thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
She's not watching. She has no idea what YouTube is.
Yeah, that's good.
That's great.
That's good. So, if I had to think, I could think of 3 people offhand. In your same thing as you, is my dad took me for my first helicopter ride when I was 7. When you were telling that story before, it reminded me of my first ride. And I still remember it to this day, and I remember thinking to myself, if I ever learn how to fly, I'm going to fly helicopters. And that's why I had no interest in airplanes at all. I just went right for helicopters. And then my first flight instructor, Paul Alaconis, he was good because he was a good guy. He was a straight guy. He was genuinely interested in the advancement of his students and teaching us not just the rules and, how things are, but teaching us beyond the rules. And in primary training now, I'm talking about just getting my private certificate. So Paul was really important. And then the third person who's no longer with us is Eric Goldbeck, and he's the guy back in 2006 started getting me interested in cherry drying, and I finally got to work for him in 2008. That was the first year I dried cherries. And unfortunately, Eric at the same year was diagnosed with cancer, and he passed away the following year. But he's the guy who got me up here and showed me this whole world of Washington State, where I subsequently moved to. And, really was the key to changing my life, really. So, and not just in helicopters, but just in general. So, anyway, and I also think the other thing I learned from Eric, and I've actually blogged about this, Eric was, I think he was 56 when he was diagnosed with cancer. And what it taught me, here's a guy, he owns his own helicopter, he's doing well financially, he's got a family and a home, and he's got a really good life, the kind of life a lot of people would really be envious of, and, struck down by cancer. And the point is that you got to live every single day like it's your last day on earth, because it could be. Or live every day like, enjoy your health, enjoy your family and your friends and the things that you do, and, get away from the TV, get away from YouTube. Really.
Select which
there's
YouTube
only
you
4
want.
people left now. They listen. But the point is that, enjoy your life and make the most out of it while you can, because you never know what's going to be down the road. So anyway, that's, let me see. Dan loves the rooster. I love the rooster too. His name is, I'm trying to remember what his name is. My friend named him because he used to live at my friend's house for a while. Russell Crowe. His name is Russell Crowe.
Yes.
I always call him Mr. Rooster though. Yeah, the roosters, I only have one rooster, and that's all you need. You actually don't even need one, but anyway, let's see now. We have some chatter here about roosters, okay? And New Zealand is checking in. Andrew, thank you for the love. He loves the videos. Manaru says it was recommended to me for some reason. I know nothing about anything, but I stay for the view.
Yeah.
And it's not even a nice day now again. Claudia, I just checked your radar over there. Some here is Wheeze and Geezer TV is from Spokane, down, not Spokane, Spokane. That's how I say it, Spokane. He wants to know if any of us were fixed wing certified, or do we do simulators? Any of you guys fly plank wings?
Those stuck wings?
Yeah, plank, we go planks. You fly planks? No?
Yeah.
No, you do.
Yeah, I do. I've been flying airplanes for. I got my airplane
This guy
license.
flies everything.
And then I tried to.
Yeah.
I want to fly everything, absolutely, except for
Yeah.
hot air balloons.
Those are
Really?
cool.
Not
No, I
interested.
Something I
love
actually
those,
thought
yeah.
about.
Yeah, until you crash land every time.
No.
Yeah. I fly airplanes. I got my airplane license, and then 3 months later, I got my helicopter license. So I learned them together, and I love airplanes. They work so well. If you're trying to get somewhere,
Oh yeah.
it's amazing. But the helicopter,
go.
what I like is that you're constantly flying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, and the jobs are always different.
Yeah.
The jobs in an airplane are not necessarily that way,
So okay. Let's see.
but they go upside down, and that's pretty cool.
Anybody do simulators?
Funny enough, we have a simulator in our house.
Oh, you do.
We put all the money and time into figuring it out, and predominantly, I mean, it's fun to have a beer and go, see if you can roll a helicopter upside down.
Yeah, there you go.
But
On a simulator.
on
Yeah,
a
on a
simulator,
simulator.
yeah. No beers before rolling
Right,
into a
right.
helicopter. But our biggest reason that we've got it is it's a great way to stay instrument current. It's it's very realistic for flying on instruments, whether you let the simulator be on fake autopilot or you practice your stick and rudder skills. And we're from a generation where our goal is to have zero inadvertent IMC, or I think they call it LOCI, locky crashes, loss of control.
Right.
The goal that was instilled on all of us when we were training is that it's unacceptable. We have to stop it, and the only person that can stop it is us. And in our case, one thing that we do is we're big on staying instrument proficient, not just I've got an instrument rating from 10 years ago, but we stay in the mentality of it and practice it a lot. So that's what the little simulator at home is most useful for. So.
This is interesting because it rolls right into Brandon's question. He just finished his PPL, about to start his instrument rating. Any advice? So he's suggesting simulator time. I don't have an instrument rating, although I did start one, and it was mostly in a simulator, which is why I was really crappy at it, because it's not real enough for me.
Yeah.
And I always crashed it. I mean, I could get the instruments to do what they were supposed to do, but when I had to land it, I would crash it.
Yeah.
I found that too. Simulator, I did a lot of my instrument training in the simulator. It's a little bit cheaper to go that way, but I would have to say it definitely depends on what you have available for a simulator. So at the flight school that I went to, we had a 44 simulator, and so it was flying the same type of helicopter. The flight school that I teach at now, I don't really encourage the simulator just because we have an A-star simulator. Figuring out how to fly that simulator while you're trying to learn instrument is very hard. And it doesn't handle at all like the helicopter that you're going to be flying. We actually do instrument training in 22s, so that's also one of the most, I think, ridiculous helicopters to do it in, just because they're very squirrely. So learning how to get that, maintaining everything perfect is really hard. So I guess to sum it up, what I would say is it depends on what simulator you have available, if it's going to be useful or if it's just going to make things a little bit harder, because at that point you're basically trying to learn two different aircrafts. Your scan might be a little bit off because the instrument panel that you're looking at in a simulator is going to be different than the one you're going to fly in the aircraft. So I would just encourage be careful of that. If you have something that's close and a replica, it's great. Once you have your instrument rating and you know what's going on, it's really easy to use the simulator as a backup for that. But initially getting your instrument, it's going to depend on what you have available.
Number one suggestion I have, by far and away, everybody wants to be the best. They want to, I got it the quickest and everything. Learning to fly instruments is hard and it takes time. And if you cheat at all, you're just cheating yourself.
Yeah,
and
that's
the
right.
biggest recommendation I have is your vision restrictor. You make it as good as possible. I know that a lot of people like the cone of shame because they can tilt it up and still see the world out there. And I got to check the compass and see what's going on. And you're just getting yourself. You know, I remember hearing a story of an inadvertent IMC punch in. Where in an unstabilized single pilot helicopter, they were in the clouds for an hour and 45 minutes before they were able to get down. And if you cheat, yeah, it is. It is. If you cheat when you're learning, you know, that ups the stress level when you actually have to use it. I'm a big fan of vision restrictors that are specific for helicopters that block out everything but the instrument panel, and it takes time to find the right one that works. In the military, we had a vision restrictor that went over your visor. And it was literally that much cut out. It was tiny, so that you could barely even see the six-pack, let alone anything outside. And doing instrument training at night, if you feel comfortable with it, or if your instructor does, I think that's wonderful. And then always make sure that you get an instrument instructor or CFII that knows what they're doing, that is passionate about teaching instruments. A lot of people say it's just time to get. It's an easy way to get 44 time. But get someone that really does know and care about flying on instruments, and take it very seriously, because it could very, very well save your life someday. It could also very, very well lead to a pay increase if you take an instrument flying job.
There you go. Yeah. I just want to point out there's a couple of people here that are complaining that they can't hear us, but there's plenty of other people saying that they can hear us fine. So what I'm going to say is that if you can't hear us, turn up the volume. Turn up the volume on your device, and you should be able to hear us because other people can hear us. And in the meantime, we will try to talk louder. There's nothing I can do. Again, I don't have a special studio. We're lucky to have what we got. There's just, and you can hear my rooster, and you can hear my wind chimes, and now you can hear birds, and that's just the way it is. This is live. This is real. Make it real. They tell us in YouTube school, they tell us, make it real. Well, this is as real as it's going to get. This is real. Okay. And there's the rooster just stressing how real it is. Sophia Dennison Johnson. Do you know that person?
I do.
Oh, she says, hi, Logan. Hi, Logan. What's an example of something going wrong with the helicopter, and what did you do about it? So this is where the disaster questions start coming in.
Yeah.
Does anybody, not just for you, I'm assuming that's for all of us.
Oh, yeah.
So any of you have an answer? I mean, other than warning lights, I've gotten I've gotten you just got the fuel pump light. I had
Yeah.
the fuel pump light
Yeah,
already.
I had the fuel pump light. I had to land for that.
She had a fuel filter light too. She got
Yep,
the double light.
The double light. That's when I was like, all right, we're done.
That's it, time to land.
Yeah, that's my biggest advice is anything that feels off, seems off, just land it.
Yeah.
I have
Yeah,
an
for
experience with still kind of an unknown of what actually happened, but basically a broken scribe clutch, and
Oh yeah.
part of why flying is not my most favorite thing right now, because that's still fresh on the
Yeah.
books. Of something went wrong that was not in the book. That there's no emergency procedure for that. I didn't even know what was wrong. I just knew that the helicopter was vibrating and it should not feel like this.
Right.
And took it in, landed at an airport. We can Monday morning quarterback this. Maybe I should have just put it down in the field. Thankfully, got to the airport, lost power at the bottom of the approach, so it just turned into a hoverado. Thankfully, that was all it was. And now that helicopter still doesn't fly yet.
Oops.
We'll
She broke
we'll
it.
see. Yeah, that's what I get blamed for. I broke it, but yeah. And what exactly happened or how it was caused, we don't know. And that's like the little extra fear that gets put in there.
Scary.
Because
That's a scary thing.
that's a mechanical something that didn't get caught, and it's not something that, maybe it is something that can be prevented in the future, or as it gets looked into more.
But maybe
figure
it's
out
not something you would have
what's
seen
wrong.
on a pre-flight.
But no, it's not something, and that's
the
the
scary
part that
stuff.
bothers me the most is there was no way to catch that. But that's why I stress, if something feels off, just land it.
Yep.
Put it down.
And you could, the great thing about helicopters is you can land it just about anywhere.
Yeah. There's no reason to keep flying it if it's
Yeah, not to add to your bad luck, but we were flying together once I think an R-22 at night, and felt a weird vibration, and we're like, "What is that?" And we both kind of took a feel of it, and we were like, "We don't know what it is, but we're just gonna land." It was like I said, at night at a remote airport. We landed, called the mechanic, and said, "Hey, helicopter's parked here. By all means, take a look at it. Whatever you want to do." Called a friend, had him pick us up, and headed home. And the mechanic came the next day and ended up having to replace the entire tail rotor assembly. And he said, "You made a very good decision
Yeah.
that you guys landed as soon as you felt that." And obviously we didn't dive into it. We were like, it's like a horror movie. You've seen the trailer, and you're like, I don't want to watch
scare me.
it.
You should know why. And I'm not going to go into detail here, but
Yeah. But
You know
basically,
anything like that? Anything serious?
I've had a number of lights. I've had governor failures.
governor
I've had
failure,
that's pretty normal.
lots of. I've had a lot of questionable things as far as during pre-flight finding things I didn't like as far as cracks and things or extra oil or hydraulic fluid just kind of everywhere. Yeah, there's been a lot of things that have made me maybe question a flight. Broken doors that wouldn't shut. It's kind of, the more you fly, the more issues you run into.
And there's something else I want to add here is that, and I think I talked about it with you, is when you fly an aircraft that's owned by a flight school or a tour company or whatever, you got a whole bunch of different pilots flying it, and they're flying it, and they have different ways and different thoughts, and they don't own it. And if something goes a little wrong, they don't want to report it because they don't want to get in trouble. And it's a whole different thing than if you own it yourself and you're the only one who flies it, because then you're like, so
You know the history of it,
what is,
everything that's,
like when I look at my gauges, I know exactly where those needles should be. So I know, and things like that are, that's a good thing about owning it. Just because I've been in some helicopters that were in flight schools situations recently. Yours, just looking at yours is like, how could they let the seats get that bad? I don't even know. But it's a difference because the thing is that an owner is going to take different care of it than whatever.
Than multiple people.
This is
Obviously,
getting off topic.
Yeah, we all
That's
want
me.
to do our best, but yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're getting into. I don't want to make this to go on forever. It's 10:19. We're going to stop at 10:30. So we got 11 minutes more, and I'm going to go through some questions, and everyone says they can hear the rooster loud and clear. Marcus says rooster is 5 by 5.
That's why they keep turning
And
their
no, we are
volume
not
down.
boom operators. That's right. everyone, it's just, and I think he's done it for a while. He usually does it for a while, and then he stops and does it for a while. We need a table mic next time. Okay,
All
you
right.
send us a table mic, we'll use it. Okay, somebody says it's always better, like, it isn't a race, says it's always better to have it on the ground. Yeah, if you're any problem, it's always better to put it on the ground. Let's see. Oh, that's it. There's no more questions. We do have a good audience. I think we have a pretty good audience. We have 49 people here. Not all of them are asking questions. A lot of them seem to like the rooster. And Frank says that he's flown a few different R22s at the flight school, and each one has a different feel. And I think that does apply. When I flew at Papillon in 2004, they were flying long rangers, and they had a fleet of at least 10, I don't know, at least 10 of them. And you get a different one every day. And they did fly different, and you soon got to learn which ones were peppy and which ones were dogs, and which one just leaked oil all over the place. You know, like if you knew, I can't remember the numbers now, but I knew that if I got a certain ship, when I went out for pre-flight, I'd have to take an extra rag, because the thing would be just like, and the inside would be just covered with oil.
Oh, yeah.
So you know how that is.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, then they do feel different, and so it's not only a difference from one model of helicopter to another, but it's actually one ship to another, and it's based on age and you know the engine. Even I've had people fly my ship, this one and the previous one, and say things like, oh, this 44 is really smooth, or this your engine's really strong, and so that's they don't say that about this. This one's not smooth. This one is, I could definitely tell it's got a lot of thump to it. So Steven says hi from Electric City, and we had somebody else say hi from Chelan. So we've got the locals checking in. And yes, Wheeze and Geezer TV says hit that like button. Hit that like button. And Ken is thinking about chicken for dinner now.
There you go.
Come
Also,
on
you
over,
better
I'll
be
give you some
quiet.
eggs. Let's see. Stephen, volume. We talked about the volume already, Stephen. You missed it. And then somebody else is from outside Chicago. So I'm gonna close it up now because we're out of comments and questions. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Many apologies for the false start with the, that happens to me. I'd say 50% of the time I cannot get the orientation right, and this time I thought I had it nailed and didn't. So I will be deleting that false start video, although it is kind of fun to watch me start fixing it. And all the advice for everybody else. That could be like the blooper reel, I guess. Maybe we'll just leave it as a blooper reel. And then, and I will change the profile, the thumbnail for this video, because not everybody wants to see my face looking right into the camera. So I will change that. And I appreciate you folks doing this. I want you guys to know that I ask people all the time if they will do this with me, and for some reason they are cowardly. And one of these people here, and I'm not going to tell you which one, was a little bit concerned about it, but I think that person is okay now. Okay.
Is that person okay?
Yes, is that person okay?
That's all.
And it's not like we're, yes, we're live and there's other people who watch this later, but I don't think we embarrassed ourselves. Except maybe me, because I always do. Not too badly. And I hope that you got a lot of good information out of this. And I encourage you to watch videos on the channel if you're new to this channel, if you just happened into this. Not all of them are exciting, but they are, I think that most of them are pretty informative, and some of them might be relaxing.
Yeah.
And some that you might find enjoyable if you're interested in flying helicopters is I did a series with 3 videos about the helicopter controls, which is not a great video, but I think it's a good starter point. I'm not an instructor, but I did the best I could. And then I also did a video with another pilot on board, and we practiced auto rotations. And you'll see some good ones and you'll see some bad ones. I didn't edit it at all. I didn't edit out the bad ones. So, and you'll hear us talking about what we did and other stuff as well. I think that those are really good for anyone interested in flying helicopters. As I fly, I will try to talk more about what I'm doing control-wise. Again, most of the stuff is automatic for me, so I don't talk about what I'm doing. I just do it. I don't even think about doing it a lot of times. It just happens. But I will try harder and keep you folks. A lot of folks have been asking, how fast are you going? How high are you going? And I'll try to update that with flying. And I have a bunch of raw footage that I need to go through including a trip to Sedona from December is still in there, a trip to McMinnville, a trip back from McMinnville. No, I don't actually have, well, I think I have last year's trip back from McMinnville. I don't remember. And then I did some cherry drawing yesterday, and there'll be more cherry drawing and other stuff. So stay tuned. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. If there's a video that you see that you really, really like, please share it with your friends. I need to get word out. I'd like the channel to grow. The more it grows, the more motivated I am to make new content. And hopefully some folks that I want to do this will watch part of this at least and say, oh, that's not so bad. I can do that. And I can get you some more pilots on and maybe some helicopter tours. Tours of, I was hoping to get a helicopter tour of that Yui that I flew a couple of years ago. And it will be back in town, but the guy that let me fly with him won't, so I have to see what I can do. Because I think a tour of that ship would be really interesting. It'll be a short video. That's it. So thanks very much, and I'm going to cut it off here. And it is, a little tiny bit early, but that's okay. It won't kill anybody. And everyone says thanks and enjoyed and whatever. And the comments will be visible. If you missed the beginning of this, you can always go back and read the whole thing, whatever. Okay, that's it?
Awesome.
All right,
Thank
I
you.
got to get up to turn that camera off, and everybody will wave goodbye. Wave goodbye.
Queens
Here we go.
goodbye.
Here we're waving goodbye. Whoops, I'm shaking it because we got to figure out what button to push. And then here's this.